Well, the excitement is extraordinary when you find out that there's a box occupied. When that neighbour told me that the box in this room was occupied and that there were young ones in it, I actually was thrilled. I mean, it's like having your first child, really.
You are very welcome to Ballycahill National School. The title of our project is The Nightly Ghost, the Barn Owl and the Farmer's Friend.
The Ballycahill Nest Box project started back in 1993 when there was a programme from the ESSA School's Wildlife Programme, and BirdWatch were involved with that, and Kevin Collins from BirdWatch Tipperary came and gave a talk to the children in the school, and he had us all totally taken in. As a result, then the children presented a lovely project on the barn owl. They called it The Nightly Ghost, the Farmer's Friend. And they entered it for the ESSA School's Wildlife Programme that year, and they won the national award. And as a result, there was a huge interest all around Ballycahill in barn owls. So the children wrote away and they said they would do something concrete for the barn owl in Ballycahill area. And they wrote away to one of the tea companies, Barry's Tea, and they sent them 6 tea chests. And the force man in the village adapted those, along with Liam Crow, helped us to make barn owl boxes, and we put them up around. I know that they were doing a history of the school there recently, and I got a lovely article from a nurse who was the past pupil. She was Maggie, and Maggie had sent me an article, and in the article she had a big piece about the Barn Owl project. So it actually was, very important at that stage of their lives that they had been introduced to something on the environmental scene, but particularly the barn owl, and she just loved it. And you could gather that from the article she wrote for the history of the school. It wasn't about the history of the school, it was about the barn owl project, which was great, really. Yeah.
As we know from our survey, there is at least one barn owl in the area. Thank you.
Even though it was about 28 years ago now since that project was done, we did not monitor the barn owl box for a long time. But then, so those boxes could have been occupied for a number of generations of owls before we actually started monitoring. But actually it is gratifying to know that those boxes were used and are being used still. And the farmers see, or the owners of the house see, that the barn owls are in their vicinity or in their area or on their farm, and they're in the nest box. The enthusiasm is extraordinary. They just love it. They are they're taken over by the whole thing, and they will ring you up and they will say, "Tom, the owl is back." Every year I get the same phone call, "Tom, the owl is back." That shows such enthusiasm, and it has, I think the project at the time highlighted for people and for farmers in particular the importance of preserving and looking after the creatures that visit the farm. I mean, they now realise, I think a lot of farmers now realise, they're just custodians for the time being, and that these creatures also need to be included in their radar. This nest box was one of the outdoor boxes that we made way back in 1993. Suddenly there were a pair of barn owls in it, and 2 young ones fledged from this box last year. The delight was something else. I mean, at last I had barn owls in my own place, you know. I mean, it meant a big thing for us. They have good hedges. As you can see, the hedges are quite good. Farmers around have nice, good hedges. Some have intensive farming, but other places are quite, a good habitat for hunting for the barn owls. And I'm pleading with farmers, please let your hedges up. Let them fruit, and then we will have prey for the barn owl. It's important.
Our barn owl population in Tipperary is doing really, really well. Thanks to the efforts of people like Tom and Liam, who are putting up nest boxes, and other people who have just put them up off their own back. It's brilliant because myself and Tom have given a number of talks. Based on those talks, as I said, people are ringing looking for barn owl boxes, or if they can't provide a barn owl box, what can they do for barn owls? So obviously putting up a box is one thing that you can do for barn owls. Another thing to do for barn owls is, if you're a landowner and you've got some land, leave some long grass, because that's where the small mammals like to go. That's where the barn owls like to hunt. You could, if you've got one of those gloss crops, you could maybe put up a couple of perching points, just a pole in the middle of the field for the barn owls to sit and listen. They've amazing hearing, so they will sit and listen for ages. And also, your hedgerows. I know I harp on about hedgerows, but they are one of the best resources for our wildlife. Let them up, let them flower, obviously, for our pollinators, but our small mammals, particularly the shrews, are insectivores, so they're eating what's produced, in those hedgerows. This time of the season it's really busy, so what we do is we start touching base with all our barn owl box owners or barn owl nest site owners, asking them if they've seen any signs of the barn owls. Usually it's around this time we start checking boxes. Obviously we don't want to go in too soon because we don't want to disturb the female barn owl off the nest site. He's really good and heavy too, this guy. 293.
Wow.
And he's younger than the first one.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the most rewarding parts of the project is working with the individual landowners, and it's a great way to start up a conversation about how important conserving habitat is, because everybody loves barn owls. They're the bird of the Late Late Show, and people know what they are, and people are always fascinated by them. They have that I suppose myth that they're the banshee bird, that bird that screeches at night time. But people are fascinated by them and really show a huge amount of love for barn owls. But it is a great conversation starter in terms of how important conservation is, habitat conservation is, how we as humans can impact on barn owls. So our use of rat poison or mouse poison, and how that, obviously if a barn owl brings in a poisoned mouse or rat into a nest, it has the potential to kill all the chicks in the nest. It has the potential to make the mam or the dad barn owl very sick, and then they can't forage, and therefore the chicks in the nest starve. So it's a really great way of getting people to think about what we do as humans has an impact on everything else. And it really is a great project that way, because we get to chat to people, and people do take it on board, and they realise if they want to have barn owls, which they generally do, that they may need to alter some of the behaviours that we do, and most people are just on board about it from the start. And it's, that's for me is one of the most rewarding parts of the project.